Welcome back. We're at Currency Roundtable number 6. We've got a special guest this week, but first off, we've got all our regular panelists here too. Ontario 100, how are you?
Glad to be here.
That's awesome. Stu Plubeck, Currency.
I am here. I am doing well.
Good to see you. Very good to see you. And that last but not least, Mr. Dustin Whitty. How are you looking?
Howdy, Dan.
You're looking good. Dustin's got
Thanks,
a phone, so we're seeing him in full-blown color.
Right.
And just even more of a man crush on you now than I had before, Dustin.
Thank you, Dan. I can't say the same towards you.
I understand that. It's a one-way road, but that's all right. So we are here. Who we have with us is Mr. Dennis Huff. And say hello, Mr. Huff.
Hi.
There he
Greetings, everyone.
So,
hey, Dennis, good to see you.
we are
It's
lucky.
good to see you.
We are lucky enough to have Dennis as our first guest, and what a guest he is. He's been a collector of currency since 1969, specializing in nationals specifically and errors, error collection. I've been lucky enough to see his former collection, and it's staggering as how cool it is. I mean, it's really good. Dennis has also been a contributing person on several books, including this one right here on the small-size U.S. paper money, the standard book. One of the best, if not the best book, if you're into small-size currency. This is a awesome book. If you're into small size, you need to have this book. It is that simple. It's in a great book. Color photos, all that great information on it. So we're just going to get right into it. And Dennis, we're just going to, we had the luck of having Steve and Dustin both have a relationship with you to say, hey, let's get Dennis on and find out what it was like back in the day. And that's what we're kind of all curious about is, back when you started collecting in 1969. I'm just going to let you take over. Take us to school, please.
Well, first, I want to thank all of you for inviting me to do this. I am definitely honored to be here. And, if I can say one thing that helps you four and the audience out there, just one thing that helps you with this wonderful hobby, then I've done my part. And I hope I can do that. So back in the day, summer of 1969,
was the summer of 69.
I graduated from college in 1969, bachelor's degree, from a school called North Central College, and decided to go on for my master's degree at DePaul University, which is located in Greencastle, Indiana. Anyway, that summer I was doing, odd jobs in and around my hometown. Most of the time I'd deposit those checks and it'd just be in the bank for something to do. And, but I went to the bank once and I had to cash a check and I got this. That showing properly?
It is.
I see a $5 small head, and I see a very large seal on that one. I know what that means.
I mean, that's a 34 something D.
It's a 30. It's a 34.
Ah.
And do the math. In 1969, that was, 34 years old, 35 years old, which isn't necessarily a lot, but I had never seen one of these. Or if I did, I didn't notice it. And it kind of piqued my interest. So I went out that summer and I bought this book.
Wow.
First edition. And you
first edition.
And
yeah.
By the way, so you wound up contributing on the last and final edition. That's impressive.
That's cool.
That is super cool.
And I looked through it and I mean, wow, first things were what's a large size note? I didn't know what a large size note was. And, you know, oh, there's one, Albany, New York. Uh, you know, how can a bank in Albany issue something that the federal government prints? And it, I'm just blown away. Plus the fact that, all these magnificent engravings. I had a stamp collection growing up as a young kid. And it was the engravings and all the different colors that really impressed me. So, the engraving on something like this, I'll get it centered. There we go. Just blew me away. I didn't know that they existed. I knew it wasn't counterfeit. Counterfeits look like they're supposed to, like the current bills. This didn't look at all like a current bill. And I do some research, and it's a mule. What's a mule?
That's what started this all. This what started this whole thing.
I get into this, and this is all happening. And then in the fall, I go down to Greencastle, start my work on my master's degree, and it's a small school, but it wasn't the same school as where I got my bachelor's degree. So I go down to Greencastle. I know nobody. I'm a loner. I don't know what to do. I don't have any friends. So I'm out driving around town one night. I see this sign, coin show tonight. So I said, well, why not? Why don't I go in there and see what's going on? So I go in there. There's maybe 5 dealers, maybe 20 people in there. I mean, not much. But I'm walking around and I see a note on the Central National Bank of Greencastle, Indiana. This is the Central National Bank of Greencastle, Indiana. That's what it looks like.
Is it still standing?
Yes, the building is still there. Has a Dillinger collection, Dillinger Association, excuse me. So I almost struck up a conversation with the guy that had it. But I'm kind of an introvert, especially back then. And I didn't. And the next week I'm thinking about, I really like to learn more about that, maybe have that. So I make some calls and find out that the guy who had it was at that time the cashier of this bank.
Wow.
So I call him up, set up a meeting, go in and start talking to him. And he's kind of an introvert too. He was, excited to have somebody else to talk about currency with. And so I ended up buying that note. As I was leaving, this guy told me, he said, check with the first teller down there. She's got a couple notes in her drawer that you may be interested in. So I go down and talk to this teller, and she has in her drawer a $10 1929 Federal Reserve banknote. It was either Chicago or St. Louis, I don't know which. And I said, yeah, definitely. I don't know anything about those. I'll take that. And she has a $10 North Africa. And I didn't know about $10 North Africa. What's North Africa? Of course, she didn't know either that it was North Africa. As far as we were concerned, it was just a silver certificate. But the yellow seal, So I bought those 2 notes from her and bought that national from the then cashier. Probably when I walked out the door with it, that was probably the first time that note left that bank since it was delivered. It was probably in the vault all that time. So from there, I was off and running. You
Well,
know,
those are some
that's
great
what
starting notes.
that's what started it all. That's what started it all for me. And
Hey,
I think,
Dustin, can you imagine Dustin going to the bank tomorrow morning and them pulling out a North Africa and a
Right.
1929 Federal Reserve Bank note?
That's
Look,
it's
someone just
amazing.
took these.
Hey, Dennis,
That's just
Yes.
mind blowing to me.
I'm assuming you just paid face value for those notes.
That's what I was
Well-
curious about.
no, no. Actually, those three notes I paid $13.50 a piece for.
Mm,
Wow.
They were all $10. All of them were $10
Right.
notes. So, I gave a little bit extra because I wanted them, you know.
I
And
think you did pretty good.
Right.
I did pretty good. I did pretty good. I was happy at $13.50 a piece.
Yeah.
And especially that national, because it was uncirculated
Ah,
coming from the bank.
Wow.
So
See, now that had to be a little different because right now when I go to the bank, if they have something cool, I can put it in a case right away. I can put it in a sleeve and know that it's protected. So when
Yeah.
you're bringing home these notes, do you just have them in an envelope, or
yep.
you didn't put them in your
At that
wallet?
point, no. At that point, I put them in an envelope and
That was
stuck
the
them in a book.
standard carry. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah, because
that
that's the
gets
part that
to
I always think about. How would I have gotten the notes home? Because I'm always, I'm always going from bank to bank and able to find stuff generally. So I always have sleeves with me so I can put them in there and make sure that they're taken care
so
of.
do I. So do I. And very often I'll carry around a small head with me too, so that I can tell
Great
them
idea.
what to look for.
Exactly.
But
That's a
yeah.
great tip. When you go to a bank and you can show them, hey, have you seen anything like this? And you pull out a small head, that's a great in for people that are watching. Whenever you go to the bank, if you've got a small head to show, there's your in. And
Of
that
course,
will
I've
get
always
you
got
so much
this
further.
with me too, and what I always show them is like $100 red seal, and I said,
Right.
"You get those, I'll take as many as you can get."
Yes.
From there, it was up and running. Started going to coin shows and Dustin, am I on your question? Where did I find notes? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then, they had same publisher as this guy, Krause Publications, Iola, Wisconsin, up in Steve's part of the country, and there were newspapers. Coin World. I don't know. Is Coin World still published? I don't know.
I've seen
But
Coin World online, but I don't know if they're.
yeah.
I don't know
well,
if they
there
have
again, we're getting
physical.
into the online thing. But it was a newspaper back then.
What's Coin World? Because it's coins and I don't
It
care.
I see it on the newsstand. If I go to oh, you're just being facetious. I get it, Dan. But
Don't
you
get
got to
out
remember,
much.
I was a teacher for a long time, and there's no such thing as stupid questions. So sometimes that happens to me. But they do still publish Coin World. I know I see it at like our local Books a Million. I always go back there to the hobby section, and it's always at the bottom, buried behind, woodworking or something.
Is it in
Yeah,
magazine form now?
Yes, and it's only about 30 or 40 pages.
Yeah.
I
okay.
remember being younger, and I mean, it was a pretty hefty magazine, but
It was a
it is, it's not,
newspaper, like Dennis said. It used to look like a
Yeah.
news. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Dennis, those were that was a valid publication at the time. And I'm assuming there was, a banknote reporter I know was up and going at that point, but
well, that came a little bit later because currency was still in the infancy. You'd go to the shows, and there'd be very few people that had
Mm.
currency, if any at all. And so I don't know. I'd be interested, Dustin, to see who's publishing that now. Krause got bought by somebody, and hopefully they'll pick this up and do the do a new version of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on they're on edition 10 right now of that book. That's the latest one. And that's, what is that, from 2014 or 2016? I mean,
Right,
that's an
it-
older version now. It's, I don't want to
This
call
is-
it out of date.
2011.
This is the newest one I got. It's the
Oh,
third
which it-
edition.
It's 2011. I mean, that's
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're definitely due for an update. That's for sure.
so. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
you get into it. I mean, you're okay. So you've got your masters, right? You're
Yes.
out in the world,
Yeah.
doing your thing. Still, what was like the next big step for you?
Probably one of the major coin shows would have been, and I can't really remember what the first one was.
Yeah.
But you walk in there and there's coins all over the place, and just a few people got paper money. So from the one ads in those two publications, Coin World and Banknote Reporter, and the dealers that I started to go to at coin shows, that became my source. And the dealers back then would, most of them would put out lists of their own, of notes that they had for sale.
Hmm.
And so every month or so, you'd get a list from this guy, and the less sophisticated ones obviously didn't have pictures. The more sophisticated ones, and one of the guys that had a real influence on my collection was Harry Jones. This is one of his catalogs. And, he would send these out periodically. They've got pictures and prices and
Oh, wow.
all sorts of things. And, once I established a relationship with these guys, I'd send them back. I'd send them some alternate choices if the one I wanted wasn't available. Um, that's how I acquired notes. There were auctions back then too, and of course they were in books. They were about physically the same size as these books, maybe not as thick, but that was the auction catalog, and not a whole lot of pictures, mostly coins. You had to read through it, and a couple things I remember about it as a buyer. There's no buyer's premium. You send them the money, and you paid the postage, and you got the notes.
Man.
Weird.
Yeah, I wasn't a seller at that point. I don't know if there was a seller's premium that they charged. I guess it was kind of negotiable.
So this is, sorry, I'm sorry, Dennis.
That's okay. Go ahead.
This is getting into Dustin's question regarding, where are you finding, like, where are you finding your notes? Okay, so yeah, there were auctions. I mean, were there local coin shops, or were you driving? The catalogs would come, these dealer lists, which is really interesting to me.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I wish I had saved some of them to show you, but I mean, you got one every month, you threw it away.
Yeah.
Why save it?
No, understood.
And let me see what else I got
So
here.
on a follow-up to that, so you're working off a list, you see a note that you're interested in. I mean, would you,
Yeah,
call? I know it's long distance, but maybe it wasn't. Would you write?
it was.
And you would say, hey, I'm interested in this. Can you hold it? I'm sending you a check or sending you cash or whatever. How would that work?
Well, that was a possibility, but most of the time I relied on the U.S. mail.
Yeah.
And I wasn't so critical that I had to have that note back then. you know, if there was a note that I really wanted, and I can't say that there was ever that. Dan, you and I were talking the other day about notes that got away. You know, they got away. You know, show you a couple things in here. Are you guys ready to get on the floor with this?
I'm already on the floor.
I'm about to say I've been on the floor for a
I'm
bit here.
already on the floor. Yeah.
Where is it? Here we go. 1928 $500 gold certificate.
Gold certificate, not just a $500 bill. Gold certificate.
Gold
Okay.
certificate. $850.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
$1,000 1928 gold certificate. 1,600.
Wow.
Wow.
I paid $1,600 for my regular $1,000, but I know that's
That's a
still
that was
deal.
that's a very reasonable
Yeah.
price today, right?
This was the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
You know, I financially I was fine. I wasn't married at the time. Didn't meet and marry Brenda until I was 45. So no kids. Financial times are different.
Was grade much of a deal for you as far as
Not for me.
in the market?
Not for me. Yeah.
Huh.
You know, when you look at errors and national currency from specific areas that you're looking for, they may not exist in any
Yeah.
other grade. They're
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
So
I say that a lot, and especially with either fancies or errors. I mean, yeah, you should kind of pay attention to the grade on them, but yeah, like you said, you may not ever see another one again, so you can't worry about the grade. You have
yeah.
to get it when you have the opportunity.
And I don't want to get a whole lot into grading, but it doesn't mean that much to me.
Mhm.
I mean, the prices from a 60 to a 70, good grief. I'll take
From a
I'll take a
65 to a
I'll take a
66.
53 or a 50. You know,
I
any
want
day.
something with eye appeal. That's all I want.
And
It's
that's,
got to look
Yeah.
nice. That's it.
you know, you talk about the comparison and the coin scale, like, because I agree with that, Dennis. I mean, a 53, give me a 50. I'm like a 40. It seems to me that's the level where I don't know after that, because it's 40, which is different from coins. I mean, a 40 in a banknote and a 40 in a coin are two very visually appealing different things to me.
Yeah. I'd rather have it and have it in my collection than wait for a 60 or a 65.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I've done tons of videos showing empty holders, going, "This is what's gonna be if I ever find one at the right price." No, nobody cares. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
see an empty holder. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to see the bill.
It shows Steve the image of my Technicolor note.
Oh yeah, of course I'll punish him with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He deserves it. Yeah,
I deserve it.
but I had it. You know.
Yeah.
Ontario, you're up next as far as what you wanted to ask Dennis.
Well, he's kind of touched on it, but Dennis, you know, before we had number grades, since we were talking about grading a moment ago, I mean, what did they go by? I mean, was it just like average circulated, new, crisp? I mean, what kind of wording and how were notes graded?
Well, let me go through the list because
Yeah.
I had time to prepare this.
Yeah.
Of the ones that I remember,
Okay.
and starting at the low end, poor, fair, good, very good, fine, very fine, extra fine, AU, almost uncirculated, uncirculated, crisp, and choice.
Ah,
And then on top of that, we had the sliders. I call them sliders. Good / very good, very good / fine, and so on. That's what we went with. And
You
it was,
focused on the letters more than the numbers. Okay.
right.
yeah, Yeah, yeah. And, this whole thing is between buyer and seller.
Mm,
You agree on a grade. To you, it's important. To you, it might be a very fine. To them, it's a fine, vice versa.
right.
As long as you can shake hands and agree on a price, that's the important thing.
Right.
Forget the grading. If it's a
See,
note you
that
want and it's a price you want or can negotiate a little bit and get it, do it.
Right. Right.
that's a great example of the way it should be. The grade on a note is irrelevant. If you are a seller, you know how much you have invested in that note. And if you are a buyer, you know how much you're willing to pay. So that's the important part. If buyers and sellers would just get together and talk like normal human beings rather than argue, oh, it's a 70, it's a 62, it's a, you know, everybody knows what they've got in it. Nobody has to
Yeah.
retire on one note.
Right.
Right.
Make a little bit on each
Let me
note.
tell you one thing here. To this day, I'm into strap searching now, which is a totally different animal from what it was back then.
I'm sorry.
I
Sorry.
do not own,
You're coming, Steve. You're coming.
have I ever owned a graded note.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Dennis,
But I
I'm going to
mean-
send you a graded note just for tips.
Thank you very much. I'll take it.
I figure you would.
Steve is chomping at the bit, so let's just let that go
Well,
right now. Let's do it.
Ontario, did I answer your question?
You did. You did. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Any
okay.
follow-up that you have, Ontario?
No, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. It sounds like it's similar to now. We've just put numbers to everything.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
And it's still subjective.
Yes. Yes, very much so.
And
Yes.
yeah,
what I noticed about what you're saying about grading, and I hear you loud and clear, Dennis, is like, yeah, you really don't appreciate the grading aspect. And guys, look what he collected: errors and nationals. That
Right.
was obviously his. I don't want to talk for you, but looking at your collection, you had some whoppers. And so I want to, show a couple of those while we're talking, that come up, and it's
well,
like, is there
I did get
offhand
in.
that come to your mind as far as, yeah, I really like these few errors, or
Yeah, I did get into type notes after that.
yes, yeah.
And I had a pretty good type set when I was done. But even at that, it wasn't the grade so much as just to have the note.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's talk about one single type, because I want that to come out, and I'm pulling it. So I'm pushing you, Dennis. You had a certain 1918 note
Yeah.
that, I mean, you talk about, I mean, a type collection, having that note. What was that note?
It was the $50 Federal Reserve Bank note.
Oh, wow.
The one from St. Louis, if I
Yes.
recall,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. 4,000
and
of them total printed,
there we go. Wow.
Yeah. I
And,
mean,
and
it's-
that's not 4,000 left. There were only 4,000 printed. So there's the number that's actually surviving is minuscule. So yeah, that's the key thing. Remember, notes today, they're printing billions. I mean, so only 4,000 printed. I can't stress how small of a number that is. And you had one of those.
And then
I had one of those. And it gets into one of the things that stimulated me. I was after the rare, unique stuff just because I wanted to have it.
I know that
But
feeling.
yeah, but for me, this hobby, it's all about the hunt. It's all about the search for that note. You're going to get your Technicolor one of these days,
Oh yeah.
and it's going to be right for you. And there's a couple things that I wanted that I never got, like a $10 1933 silver certificate.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another rare.
Yeah,
I've never even
or
seen those.
I can't think of another one right now, but I have my list of the of the notes that I would have liked to have had. Oh, double denomination note. I always wanted a double denomination error
Oh
note.
yeah.
And
ridiculously rare error. Yes.
yeah, Harry Jones, and I talked about that once. And he said, buy the best one you can. Well, that's what I would do, is probably buy the best one I can. But I didn't want it to necessarily be uncirculated. I didn't
Right.
want to spend 15,000 for an uncirculated. I'd much rather spend, in that case, 3 or 4,000 for a nice, very fine note.
Right.
Exactly.
Were you, Dennis, when you were collecting, and it's like, okay, it's into the 80s, into the 90s, you're now, you can be selective on what you want. Were you still going back and forth, picking up an error, searching for that national, or occasionally, filling out a type, picking up a Technicolor, or I don't know, a $500 1918 FRN, just saying he had it?
Yeah, I got to the point where, you know, other than, let's say, that unique national that I didn't have, or even one that I did have, uh, I'd buy another one, if
Well,
for the local bump,
well, I mean, you were greedy. I mean, that's why I'm going to call you greedy, because, yeah, those nationals from Hawaii, you know,
Mm.
you had multiple, and I can't remember if it was type 1 and type 2s. I think you had both. If you had it, if it could be gotten, I think you had it. And
yeah,
that was
I had the complete set,
yeah.
both titles, Bishop First National, Bishop National, Type 1, Type 2. They didn't issue a 20, so I had the Type 1 and Type 2 5s and 10s. Also had the Type 1, Type 2 50s and 100s. Now, when you get to Type 2 50 and 100s, you're talking some pretty, there's maybe 12 banks that issue Type 2.
And for anybody that doesn't know, I mean, type 2s were issued for a very short time period.
Correct.
So there was a lot
I
less
want-
of them out there.
Now, Steve, I sent you the catalog, and you got
Yep.
images, but here's the catalog on the front of it. Those Hawaii notes there were mine.
Oh, wow.
So what catalog are you showing, Dennis?
This is the catalog where I sold my collection.
You put your collection into a lot of it, not all of it, my understanding, into auction.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it all went.
yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's, and what year was that?
1999.
99. Okay. I mean, it's just like amazing, amazing, amazing. So I gotta go back, because I do want to get to Steve, because I do want to save time for what you're doing today. But anybody else have that feeling when, like, he described it, and he's really kind of the first person that said back to me, the hunt, the hunt, the hunt. Anybody else feel kind of anticlimactic when you got the note I sometimes I feel that way. Anybody else?
That's how I feel about this Technicolor note, because I have the cash now and I can buy it. But I've been looking for that note for so long. It's like, if I buy that, oh boy. But when you specifically say about the hunt, I totally understand what that is. And even before you said the hunt, you said you just wanted to own that particular note because of the rarity.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt when I got that $10,000 gold certificate. I thought, there's only 400 of these out there, or 450 of these out there, and I have one. I don't care the condition. I understand that need and want. When you have that,
And sometimes with a note like that, the better pedigree, the more burn stains that they have on it, the
Exactly.
better,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I was so proud to have one that is burnt like that. Now, Dennis, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just to clarify for everybody else, you didn't do anything much at all with coins, right?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I traded the last coins I found. Now I may find some in a drawer somewhere, but
Yeah.
no, I never did anything. The last screw, I just traded within the last year. Um, I had about $100 worth, and I traded it for a $10 gold certificate. You know,
Okay, because I know Ontario does both coins and currency. I don't. I mean, I had a couple coins back when I first started, but I was immediately drawn to currency. So
yeah,
I knew that you were a currency guy at heart, but
yeah.
we just can't help buying the occasional coin every once in a while.
There are people out there that are misguided. I'll hear about that.
I'm guilty when it comes to big chunks of silver. I'll admit it. But not stacking though. Numismatics. Numismatics.
Gotcha.
So Steve,
Yes.
time. So
All right, Dennis. um, one of the first things is I know you strap search. I know you strap hunt like I do. Did you do that before ever finding my channel, or is that something that you started because you saw me doing?
Because I saw you do it.
Okay, so I created a
Yeah.
monster.
well,
Okay.
like
With
you
one
know about
caveat
Steve,
here.
you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I would always look at serial numbers
Oh, yeah.
every time,
In
you know,
circulation, yeah.
but
Anytime you get
I
change.
didn't go to the bank and get straps until I
Okay.
saw you do it and saw some other guys out there doing it. And I thought, hey, talk about a hobby that doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
That's one of the best parts. Now,
Yeah,
when you get your singles, do you always get them from one bank? How do you go about getting singles? Because it's a question that I get asked all the time, and I have such a great setup. My bank has a bunch of people that deal in singles, whether they're bartenders, dancers, whatever. So there's a lot of singles deposited into my bank. So my bank literally calls me up on the phone and says, "Hey, we got 1,000 singles for you," and I go and I get them. So for me, getting 1,000 singles is easy. What's your process on getting singles?
okay. Start at the beginning. I've got two banks that I deal with.
Okay.
One is a local bank, and the other one is what I'll call a multi-regional. They're all across the country, but I'm going to call them a multi-region. I go to about 10 different branches, you know, over a 2 week period. I do 1,500 a week. That's what I
1,500 a week.
strap so.
Okay. But you
1,500
don't
a
get
week.
them all from one bank. You get them from different
No,
branches.
right. Now,
Okay.
there are a couple that I will get $1,000 a week from, but I try to mix it up because the different branches from the different banks have a different personality of where they're
Yes.
getting their ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
So generally, it's $500 when I walk in the door. And they know me now. I walk in the door and I hold up my hand. They know I want 500 and they're already on their way to the vault. Yeah,
Okay.
every
Now,
one of those 10 offices, top quality people, wonderful people. They know me. They know what I'm there for. They take good care of me. I can't say enough about them. They're all
now,
super.
what about the other end? Once you've searched them, how do you go about returning them to the bank to not
Same
get
way.
everybody mad at you?
Same.
Same way?
Well, they don't get mad at me. I don't know what your tellers do.
Oh, no,
500.
my tellers don't get mad.
Yeah,
But
five
you're
hundred
not,
dollars
Steve.
is about as much as I can get in one of these.
Okay.
These are ready to go tomorrow, and it's an even exchange. 500 ones for 500 ones. And the fact that they got to run them through the counter, I don't care. If they don't have time, most of them know me and say, if they're off, we'll tell you. I haven't been off in 2 years because of the way I do it.
I've been off 5 times, I think, after going through what is almost 300,000 notes. So that's
Wow.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
been, I think, 5 times that I've been off. Well, part of the reason I asked that though,
Steve,
yeah.
but you're talking about, neither one of you are dumping 10 grand on one bank at one
Oh,
time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
it's little
That's
by
right.
little or different banks. Oh, got it.
That's exactly what I'm getting to. Because if you at home are strap searching and you get 1,000 singles from your bank, and then the next day you go right back to that bank and return those 1,000 singles.
The other thing that doing 500 for 500, it doesn't mess up their cash totals.
Exactly.
They don't have to request ones from their vault. They don't have to ship it.
Exactly.
I give them the
That
same
can be such a
amount
pain.
in ones that they're going to give me.
That helps out tremendously, and that's a great tip for people who do this. If you give them 500 for 500 like that, yeah, everything still stays in balance. They don't have to reorder anything. They don't have to ship out bills. It's the fairest way to do it. But I want to get to the next part about this question, which when you told me this, this was one of the mind-blown things to me. If you do not have a lot of different banks to go to, one of the things that you are going to encounter is, what happens when you get the same strap back? How do you know if you've already searched that strap that the bank is giving you? And Dennis, you've got such a neat, how do you do this? Go ahead, tell people this.
Maybe this is the tip they carry away with them. Just don't use the same numbers that I do. As I'm going through those bills,
Yes.
I get a strap and I start going through it. I'm going to pull out 5 bills that the serial numbers end in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's all you're looking
Those
at,
are
is the last digit. Yes.
the last
5 notes,
digit.
one with a 1, one with a 2. Yep.
Yep. And I'm going to put those on the front of each one. Now, the fact that I initial those straps and reuse them, that's kind of for my control here. So I went through everything and so on. Because they're going to tear the straps off and restrap them. But
Now
unless they have a problem with their counter, they're going, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to stay in that order.
Now here's the math behind that for everybody watching. The odds of the first note on the top of a strap having a 1 are 1 in 10. The odds of the first note being a 1 and the second note being a 2, that's 1 in 100. By the time you get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're talking 1 in 100,000 for that to happen randomly. So what a great way to make sure that you could literally just flip through and see whether or not you had searched that strap before. To me, when you told me that, that was genius. I mean, there's now for everybody out there, you don't necessarily have to use the last number. You can use the first number of the serial number. You could use the Federal Reserve itself, A, B, C, D, E. There's so many different ways that you could do it. And to me, what a great little control that doesn't interfere with the banking process at all, but still gives you such control over what you're searching. That to me was such a great tip when you told me that.
And two comments. Number one, most of the tellers know that, and the branch managers know that. So if they've got my bills in the vault, they won't give them to me. They know what that. They know that they got them from me.
Tip.
Yeah, you're like a true professional.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely left brain. I'll tell you that.
One of the things that I collect when I'm strap searching is I'm always looking for trinaries and I'm looking for quads. Not that they're worth anything. I'm just trying to pair serial numbers. You gonna be okay, Dan?
I don't know. I'm a Christian strap searcher.
Now, Dennis, you know that I'm trying to find pairs. You're trying to do the same thing, but you're doing it with different numbers, correct?
Right.
What is it that you look for?
Well, I call it my James Bond approach, just because I think it's a cool way of calling. I do double O's. Any note that starts with 2 zeros, I'll pull because of matching. So what I've done is taken the 100,000 100 million possible numbers on a bill with eight numbers and cut it down to 1 million. I've immediately cut it by 100.
Right.
Because the first 2 are going to be 0.
Exactly.
That increases my probability of being able to match something immensely.
Exactly.
And also because of the way they're produced, each block of each series starts with 00. The first million in each block and each series is going to be a 00. So
Correct.
no matter how many blocks they print, how many series they come up with, there's going to be double zeros in
Have you managed to pair your double O's?
there. Yeah, about
You do.
half a dozen.
Half a dozen. Okay, I've got
Wow.
probably 3 or 4 of each, both trinaries and quads. But yeah, if
And
you've got six,
that's because they print 00s before they print any other numbers.
Interesting.
All right. I'm gonna say I want to change subject back, and it's actually Dustin related. Because I want to go like going back to collecting days, 70s, 80s, 90s. How big a deal was fancy serial numbers?
Not the whole definition as it exists today. You know, serial number 1 notes, serial number 2 notes, solids, uh, true binaries. Yeah, the low numbers, those were a collectible at that point, but didn't always command any kind of a premium. And if they did, not much.
Okay.
You know,
So that,
Dan, you and I were talking the other day. Show them the battleship note that I had,
yeah.
serial number 24.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's
but I didn't buy it for that. It just happened to have it.
yeah, oops. Oops.
Yeah.
I got a battleship that's in
And
great shape, and oh, that's serial number 24. Oops.
yeah, and there's a national on LaPorte, Indiana, in there. It's a serial number 1, type 1-5. It's a serial number 1, but it's a national. Every bank that issued national bank type 1s had 6 number 1 notes. Yeah, and
yeah,
it was
because of that
limited
multiple.
by the bonds they had on
Yes, that
deposit.
were put on deposit.
So
You'll find a lot more of the nationals that have seemingly low numbers. Like they'll have number 1,220, and you're thinking, oh, that's a pretty low number. Well, no, realistically, it's not. Even if you find a 3-digit national, that's not really how it works with the
Right.
nationals.
Yeah,
So you have to keep
there
that
is
in
an
mind.
asterisk behind the low numbers with
Correct.
yeah.
yeah. So my serial number 1 note was a national. So it's one of 6.
Right.
Happened
Unless
to
it
be
was
the
the A.
top note of the first sheet, but
That's number 1 then
it
for
was a
sure.
serial number 1.
It's a
Yep.
serial. And what was that from your hometown of it?
No,
Okay.
no, but it was in the area.
In the area. I mean, that's just, I mean, again, I'm so jealous because he's got a very, I mean, multiple, I would say, what, there's 7 or 8 that you were concentrating on it from my memory, including your hometown. And he was able to do that. And it's something that I'm jealous of because my hometown the National Bank never issued currency. How about star notes? Were star notes a thing where people like, oh, that star notes, 3.2 million were made, or that's, in the
Yeah,
70s, 80s, and 90s, or they just didn't have that information, I'm assuming.
oh, you knew they existed. You knew they were replacements. You didn't necessarily recognize the significance of it. I think because the control procedures were not as rigid back then, so there were a lot more mistakes.
Hmm.
So
Well,
star notes were not necessarily that rare. People
Yeah.
didn't recognize the rarity as something to collect.
so
Now
I,
that's not 100% true. They did, and the collectors knew that a star note was worth saving. But the premium that they command now
Mhm.
for a large size star note is just exponential. compared to what it was back then.
Well, and
Star notes were nice to have, and oh, that's kind of neat. But
well, and I'm kind of, leading the witness here, because bringing up Star Notes, it was curious because I'm one of those folks, you guys know this, and I'm like, why, unless Steve, that information comes true, I get it. Other than that, I'm like, well, how much value does it really have? How much, but whatever. But here's the kicker with Dennis's collection, that he's got a couple Star Notes in his collection that have major errors on them.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a little ironic? And it's
Yeah,
like,
there's irony.
they're like massive errors. They're not just, oh, well, it's a gas pump or whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up because I want to show those while I'm blabbing away here, because they're really cool errors. I mean, really cool. To have a Star Note with a massive error is cool.
The
That
whole
was
reason
like,
they exist was because there was an error. So it's like, let's give them a second shot at getting it right, and they still screw it up.
yep.
Only the government can do that, right?
I mean,
only human beings can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
and Dennis, that leads to human beings. We're all unique. We're all individual. And I asked Dennis why. What's the deal with errors? I mean, errors is a subset of collecting that, like fancies, like this, like that. And I just asked him why. So I'm going to ask you the same question, Dennis. Why was errors was a major focus of your collection? Major.
The uniqueness of it, the this offset versus another offset that's a little bit bigger versus a total offset. Each one of them is different, and you're scratching your brain because you want to determine what happened, how it was created, and there's a lot of them that you really can't explain. But
And I'm stretching this out because as we're talking, I'm just going to be throwing notes past everybody here because
Yeah,
they're
okay.
incredible, folks. I mean, seriously, and I'm
Well-
talking about them, and I don't know what I'm going to show yet, but
And that's the cool part about collecting errors. Like you said, how did it happen? How could this happen? And how did it get out? That's the other part. Because I have the feeling a lot of the errors that are circulating, maybe shouldn't be. I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Well,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying.
well,
you
he actually has a few notes with stickers that have been labeled. I'm not saying Dennis was sneaking into the BEP,
Right.
but they're flagged with the red grease pen or the tag on
Yes.
the note saying it's an error, and that got out. That was humans bringing that out. It had to have been.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
About it, Dennis, you said they could have forgotten about it. It's humans. It's massive millions of bills. So.
yeah.
All right, we
on
are
that error train. Dennis, I'm sure you've seen my Saturday videos. That's not an error videos. What are your thoughts on those videos? I'm sure you've watched them. Am I going about this the wrong way, or?
Oh, I don't think so. You're after the scammers and shoot them all.
Hopefully everybody uses that as a learning experience and as a way to hunt down errors, because as we're talking about errors, there are just so many fascinating errors out there. It's just a shame that there's also so many people that think everything's an error.
well.
Yeah. And they're trying to scam.
Yeah.
It may be technically an error.
I'm always under the
It's-
impression that what makes an error valuable is the fact that they yank them. Okay. So if you have, yes, well, if they print 1,000 of them like that, they're supposed to yank all 1,000 and maybe one or two of them get out. But if being slightly off center, if that's still within their tolerance, is it an error? Yes, it's an error, but it's not worth anything because they don't bother to pull them.
Well, I would.
And that's how I judge it. Go ahead, Dan.
It's not within their specifications of what they want, but it is within tolerance. It
Correct.
doesn't mean it's an error. I mean, everybody's got certain bandwidth of specs. It meets the specs. probably out of tolerance, but it doesn't mean it's an error. And that's where I go back to Steve. I mean, maybe you've been wrong. I don't know, on chasing down one person. And to me, it's the point of, if you are buying that for the value, for the resale, for the investment, that's the angle that I think gets forgotten in your videos, is that people are getting ripped off. And that's what angers me. And that's where Dennis is shoot them all. Absolutely. Because I don't want that new collector whatever to be ripped off, and we get mad at the serial numbers and the made up things like that, because it's just bad for the business. Bad.
Correct. I don't want a newbie to take this note that he just paid $500 for to a dealer and have the dealer tell him what I just said in the video. That's not how you bring people into the fold.
All right. So we are at time, but I want to go around. Anybody have a last question for Dennis?
Dennis, I appreciate the camaraderie. I appreciate the notes you've sent to me as well, and the letters. I've got the notes with the letters in my safe. And I'm just always going to keep them together. And I know you got them strap searching, and which makes it even better.
Right.
I really appreciate that.
Well, if I can put a smile on your face, I'm happy.
Oh man, you've done so.
Yeah. But you're going to send me a graded note. So
Yeah. I'll get right on that. I'll get you. I've got an idea of one I'm going to send you.
Okay.
Ontario?
Well, I just want to thank Dennis for being here tonight and sharing his experiences. And I guess one thing I just want to say and get his feeling on, I'm still amazed as the newbie at how many collectible notes there still are to collect. I'm still amazed at how much is still with us when you think about how delicate paper is.
You're talking survival rate, right?
Survival rates, yes. And that we have, after, some of them are well over 100 years old and they're still around. I'm still amazed that you can find as much as you can. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dennis? I mean, I find that amazing.
Well, like you said, and I think Dustin said it once on the panel, at least as far as series concerned, all large size notes are 100 years old.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
It's a testament to the way notes are produced.
Right.
That they do have longevity, that they can survive this. Now, we may be pushing the envelope with paper, because they're really cloth,
right?
But it served us since 1862, and even before. There was paper, and they do survive. And it's just fascinating how many do show up. But everything with eBay, that you thought was really rare, all of a sudden it just comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Steve? Any
what?
Final thoughts?
No. I was like, did I move? Did I flinch?
No.
Yeah, Dennis, I've enjoyed all of our trades that we've had. Dennis is one of the few people that I actually trade back and forth with on the regular basis. And it's just so exciting every month to get a neat package, because I never know what's coming in the packages. And that I look forward to everything that's in there. And I thank you for everything that you've put in there. I appreciate that. And hopefully I've done them justice in the videos whenever I show them on there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have. And that's the part I enjoy. I wish I could have breakfast with you four guys every day of the week.
As long as you'll pay.
Wow. All that interest you made in the 80s. I mean, come on.
What? That's what I'm implying.
There you go.
All right. Well, yes, Dustin, right here. Dennis's beautiful handwriting.
Yep.
letter and a note that he gave to me. And it was funny because it was a Minneapolis FRN, and he was smart enough to pull that from one of his strap searches that he came across a B suffix. That's rare, folks, for Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a very small FRN. That's how sharp he is and knows to come across a B suffix from Minneapolis, because they're all A's. Almost all of them are A's. I am.
And
Yes, sir.
here's 3 more of them that are going to be coming your way after a while.
Have to buy him lunch. I am going to speak for the group because we would be more than honored to have you back. We've been honored this time, and we are just scratching the surface. I mean, I want to be able to talk about, do a little homework beforehand and go through some of the notes and errors that he had in his collections, folks. I mean, it's what I've thrown in front of you has gone by quick, and that's on purpose. To talk about some of the stories that I had a chance to talk with Dennis and get in deeper on some of these notes and rub Steve's Technicolor in it and go buy it. It's an amazing collection, from multifaceted collection, Dennis, and I am in awe of that. And I love it that, yes, grade wasn't important. And honestly, you're going to see that, but it was really the rarity of that note, the one of a kinds that are part of his collection that were amazing. So,
and that, that's what did it for me. And everybody out there's gotta have that stimulus, whatever it is for them. Collect what you want, what you like, but it's still a common hobby. It's still paper money collecting.
yeah. All right. Again, Mr. Dennis Huff, thank you very much for your time. It has been our pleasure. You will be back, whether you like it or not. It's happening, and I think I will speak for everybody on that. Gentlemen, as always, it's so great to just be here and, let's say, have breakfast with Dennis. All right, folks, we're out. That's the end of Currency Roundtable number 6. We'll see you for number 7 coming up.